session dealing with a personnel matter. No votes were taken for the record, so we'll get back into our regular schedule here. Is that good? Okay. But this time we'll drop down to new business. Election of Council Advisory Board alternates. What we talked about last was that we had advisory council members that were attending these meetings and also an intertribal, and it was suggested and recommended that we have alternates for these boards and committees, and because we have several council members that wanted to attend, so at this time I'd entertain a motion to approve alternates for those two boards and committees.
Make a motion.
Who are they?
Motion and second. Do we have names on those? Okay, no, we don't have names, so. Okay, got a motion, second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay,
No, it was a motion to put this into discussion. Yes.
we didn't name.
We didn't name anybody, we're gonna do that.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Okay. Okay, do you want to do names now?
I'd like to nominate Mike Shambaugh as an alternate for the Housing Authority.
Okay, a motion and a second to nominate Mike Shambaugh to the Housing Authority. And I got a second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, intertribal.
I'd like to nominate Keith Austin for that.
Motion, Keith Austin, second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Are we good on that one, Sheldon? Okay. Next resolution, Councilor Lay, would you take that?
Yes, sir. Resolution authorizing Cherokee Nation to become a member of the National NCAI and to appoint the tribal delegates and alternates. Put it in form of a motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? For your information, we are all delegates to that. The 17-member council, you're allowed to go if you choose to. So, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We need to make a change on the alternate of Ms. Barker Harold to Lynn.
I'll make that change before we get council.
Okay. Okay, we had a motion and a second. We voted on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So next
Can
resolution.
I just ask a question about that?
Yes, go
Is
ahead.
this done every time there are, how often is this done? Is it every time there's changeover on the council or in administration or something? Is that
Yearly?
yearly?
Yes.
The NCAI thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yearly so that we renew the dues and all that
Okay.
stuff.
Okay, that was my only question.
Okay. Okay, next one, Counselor Warner, you gonna take the next one?
No. Well,
Authorizing the easement.
yes, this is a resolution authorizing a grant of easement for a transmission line right-of-way to the Plains and Eastern Clean Line Oklahoma LLC across the Arkansas River and granting a limited consent to be sued. Put that in form of a motion.
Got a motion? Second. Got a second. Any discussion? Yes.
Is this the $40 million or the $2 million for 40 years?
Yes, Secretary?
It is.
Okay. Councilor Warner?
Yes, thank you. You know, this is an issue that crosses Sequoyah County. This is an issue that the citizens of my district they take very seriously. You know, of course, you got people that are it's the vocal majority are against this. You know, and I don't want to get anybody thinking that I'm against. This is not a fight against renewable energy. I'm all for a diverse portfolio of things like that. But the part that gets me, and I've thought a lot about this because I've wavered and I've listened to the things. This come up when I was running for council, and a lot of people, they used it. They did some grandstanding, some different things, kind of. I think in everything that you look at, no matter what you do, a business plan or whatever, it's only as good as its approach, okay? It's all about the approach and how we're coming into this. And people in my area, this has been going on. I've got they came and visited me. I've got a report of things of what they're going to do. This started in 09 or 10. But people didn't, they started seeing people on their land. And I don't think they were approached with they broke trust right away. I can say that. You know, with some of them, hey, we're not here for anything. Well, then when they found out what they were there for. And the way that they were approached, I think that started them off on a rocky path. I mean, they put together, I talked to several of the executives, they put together a good portfolio of things for landowners, different things like this. But to me, in the process, the local landowners have lost their voice in all of this. You know, and even at the state level, when you look at a section 1222, and what that does, they go through all these different steps. They made every little step. They had the environmental review. We even got in 2015 and did the programmatic agreement, that section 106, which gives us rights to historical preservation, okay? When they started out this process, though, you're looking at a 5-mile easement when they started looking. I mean, they narrowed this scope down. Now you're at a 1,000-foot easement, okay? That's a corridor, what they call it, okay? So that they can move that line within that corridor. Then you're down to a 200 to 150-foot easement on somebody's land. And folks, I mean, just because I got a horse, that doesn't mean he's for sale if somebody wants to buy him. If I got a piece of land, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily for sale. I purchased some land not too long ago, and I had to give the city a 25-foot easement. And that's when I started feeling, I was like, man, I'll never be able to do anything with it. But the city's providing me a service. I mean, I can reconcile that to what I'm going to get. And a lot of these things, hey, this is going to be a boom for, we got jobs, we got, that's short-lived, okay? You got ad valorem tax. I've been told that that formula that goes through, that thing depreciates down over a 20-year period. You've got one-time payment. I've heard story after story from Cherokee citizens, non-tribal citizens, full-blood Choctaw citizens that decided to move to Sequoyah County and built a house with his own hands. And now he's got to give up an easement over here. You're talking about future generations of people not being able to plan and do things that they may not know what they want to do with it, but hey, if I'm a landowner, and they're not making any more of it, that's one of the famous words I hear all the time, they're not making any more, and I believe that. That's how I feel. But, you know, what is it? I know that it's a great, it's something I know what we're looking at is different. But I just want to let everybody know that, I've got a family, and they're a large family. And I think that their family members sat on this, I know she sat on this board with this council, and she brought forth a resolution against Clean Line, okay? Those lands that they live on out there, that's their Indian allotment. Their family, a lot of them. And to take that across there, I mean, I'm not comparing this to anything, but it's kind of like if they don't want to give that up. And to me, a good plan and that way of approach, if people are active in the entire process and they don't feel like they've been dealt underhanded, I'm sure there'd have been a way that we could have done this without, so many people. And I know what we're discussing today is for us to give easement across the Arkansas River, all right? But once you do that, when you look at that, we're a tribal government, we're a sovereign nation. That kind of, a lot of them are counting on us. The whole state of Arkansas, the majority, they're working on an approval act, which allows citizens to dictate, local landowner and the state to come in and dictate what they're going to do without fear of eminent domain seizure to their property. And that's, the feds come in and take that over. So my vote, with all that said, I talked to a lot of my citizens. I've had advice to stay out of it, and but I want to learn something. How can you when you live right there? And it's not even about what it looks like. I could care less about what it looks like. And it's an infrastructure project going across, and I know moving something to here, if maybe, you know, and I know people, they have different ideas, but maybe if we were putting in a converter station in Sequoyah County, everybody would have been like, hey, that's something that we can do. Now we've got some jobs. They're putting that in Arkansas. Even in Arkansas, they still don't want it. And it's not about renewable energy. It's not a fight against it. It's more about a loss of voice to that process. And, you know, I don't want to dictate what somebody else does to their land. If it was something that we absolutely needed, and it's different than our wind farm, because we're going to be able to use that energy, the one that we look at Chilocco, and that's totally different than what we're talking about here. And I know infrastructure projects are very important, but my vote today will be a no. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Augustine.
Sarah, was there a cultural survey done on this transmission line?
Yeah, under the NEPA, they had to go in and comply with section 106. So they had to go in and look at all the different cultural properties on their route. And they, as he mentioned, they entered into a programmatic agreement with the Cherokee Nation to give us more of a voice into what happens if they should find a funerary object or if they find a grave site. So there would be a specific process that everyone would know ahead of time that was supposed to be followed in those circumstances. So those have been complied with. Section 106 has been complied with, and this is back when Sheila Bird was the TIPO. She was the person that primarily was the negotiator, I suppose, of the programmatic agreement. She and I worked on that together. So that's the situation that's in place.
Okay. What other tribes had to take place in all this? Was there a lot of different tribes that had to be the signee off this Arkansas Riverbed settlement?
The only tribe that was a required signatory was the Cherokee Nation because of the Arkansas River. Now, there are a lot of other tribes who are also signatories, but they were invited signatories to the agreement. But there are many other tribes that are also signatories.
Just, you know, I don't live in this area, and you know, of course, we have to respect Councilman Warner and his constituents and what they are going through all this. And I'm not driven by money by no means, and you know, someone's livelihood and this is where they live at, and I don't like I said, I don't live there, but I wouldn't want a transmission line going through my field, and you know, because that's my homestead. That's where I grew up at. I was raised out there, and so I'm just gonna have to go off with Councilman Warner and his constituents what they're saying, because as a whole, we all represent all of Cherokee Nation, but all of us don't know what's going on in Genesis, and Genesis she doesn't know what's going on in my area. So I'm gonna be respectful of that. So thank you, Speaker.
You know, I'm the same way. My family is from Sequoyah County, and I was raised there. And out of respect to Councilor Warner, unless somebody provides me with new information, I'm going to entertain a motion to table.
I'd like to make a motion to table so we could get a copy of what Counselor Warner has and let us all review that.
Okay. Motion to table?
Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion to table. Last, we've got Councilor Taylor, you want to take the last one?
This is a resolution authorizing certain lending transactions involving Cherokee Nation Businesses LLC, a Cherokee Nation tribal limited waiver of sovereign immunity, and I move for its approval.
Got a motion? Second. And a second. Discussion?
The handout is the one that will be the revised version.
Okay. Okay. All right, Mr. Evans, you're up.
Thank you, Speaker Byrd. Hello, Tribal Council. It's good to see all of you again, newly elects and re-elects. It's good to be here, a privilege to be before you today representing the business interest of CMB. This particular agenda item is related to a revolving line of credit for our businesses that are essential in maintaining our capital availability going forward in the future. This is not a term loan. This is simply a line of credit in the event that such funds are needed for various times when the businesses can find themselves either due to a significant amount of capital projects that are concurrently being constructed at the same time that depletes treasury reserves at CMB, or also, as eloquently put last week by Councilor Crittenden, it also serves as a very good insurance policy for that liquidity need of the business. This line of credit is not in and of itself a new facility being presented to the body. Most of you, I believe, were aware that Cherokee Nation Businesses does maintain a current line of credit with 4 participating banks led by Bank of Oklahoma. This is a renewal, if you will, with a increase that represents this line staying scaled to the size of our current operation. Our operation has grown since the existing line that was put in place in 2013, approximately 50%, both on top line revenue as well as expenditures. It's the expenditure side that this line of credit serves, both on a capital expenditure and operating expenditure need. Several things can trigger in the future events that would cause one to believe we would go on to this line. Things that were discussed in the past that you're aware of, as well as those unfortunate events that the insurance side of the equation would kick in the event of a catastrophic weather-related event or fire or something such as that. This is what we are requesting at CMB is an increase from our existing $100 million line to $150. That number is not a magical number. It represents, again, the scaled growth of our business since the 100 was put into place to try to keep it at an appropriate level. The terms and conditions have been discussed, and I believe personally that they are even more favorable than the credit facility that was put into place in 2013. We have negotiated with the banks very favorably because of one primary reason, and that's the financial strength of the Cherokee Nation. Just pure and simple. The banks understand that, they respect that. It aids in our negotiations with those institutions to avail proper financial market capacity and loan capacity to the nation, as well as the businesses. So that's a bragging point for, I think, both the nation and the businesses being able to maintain such a fiduciary responsible in their actions and intent, led by, obviously, the appropriation process of this body. So it is made the negotiations easier. And the banks, they do compete. We don't go into the banks with our hat in our hand. It's kind of the other way around. And it's a very good position. We negotiate with strength, in other words. So, Mr. Speaker, appreciate the opportunity on behalf of the business to sit before this body. Got a lot of respect for this body, and happy that those counselors that have sponsored this piece of legislation and support, and I know that this body as a whole appreciate not just the sponsors, but all of the support that this body gives to the businesses and understanding the important role that CMB plays in the nation. And this particular resolution authorizing us to establish and maintain, not establish, but maintain an adequate level of working capital line of credit is essential in conducting, not just conducting the business, but positioned well in the event of something that can rise up in a need for capital resource.
For those of you who may not know, Doug is our former chief financial officer for the Cherokee Council. So he's been on both sides here. I just want to thank you and commend you for bringing this information to us a few weeks ago and not springing it on us at the last minute. I mean, we've had time to look at it, and the way I understand it, that we could have leveraged 200 million. But we went after 150 million. So I appreciate you sharing the information with us beforehand, and not just today.
Quite welcome. I appreciate that, Speaker. One other point that The current line had 4 participating banks in it. This one is anticipated to have, is going to have 6 if approved. The 2 additional banks, one is a very large national bank, and the other one is a regional bank. Both of those create a relationship with Cherokee Nation that, and the businesses that for future financing needs as this organization as a whole continues to grow at the pace it's been, then having those people that are willing and desiring to have a relationship with the Cherokees, they are coming forward and they are excited to do that. So we vet those out very carefully and ensure that those financial institutions are of utmost reproach and similar to the way that your recent credit line was negotiated and closed for your health facility. You have a good, strong group of banks there, and I feel like we've got a good, strong group of banks, some of which are the same, by the way. So we're able to maintain that financial prowess out in our growth needs when it comes to capital.
Okay, Councilor Critton.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it being here, appreciate the meeting the other day. On the surface, you know, it looked good. I got some concerns.
Okay.
So we get 35% dividend, bottom line. I mean, I know there's extra added throughout the year. 35% is the dividend,
Minimum.
minimum dividend.
Yeah.
And the council set that.
Yes.
And now if this body would ever want to up that a little bit, does a yes vote on that change that?
That would be contingent upon if that was a special dividend or if it was adjusting the minimum.
Adjusting the minimum,
Yeah.
like going up to 40, let's say.
And that in itself is a legal question that I'm probably not the best one to provide a legal answer. Have my opinion of my interpretation, but I'm not qualified to share my interpretation.
Thank you.
And the answer to your question is it's hard to answer in the abstract. Okay, we got to see what how much an increase would be, what that would do to the effectiveness of being able to repay the note. The short answer to your question is no. You could raise the dividend to 75%. You could raise the dividend to 100%. You could tomorrow vote to to outlaw gaming in the Cherokee Nation altogether. That's within the power of the council to do. Is that wise? No. Would there be consequences? Yes.
So a yes vote on this don't tie this body's hand on raising that bottom line.
Well, it depends on when that request is made, how much that request is made. Does that affect the repayment ability of this note? I can't answer that question in an abstract way.
Okay. I've always, I've seen in the past that when they bumped it up to where it is now, the council essentially done that, right?
It did. I was attorney for the council when that occurred.
And my concern came after we had our meeting where, and not being a lawyer myself, it would essentially make it where we couldn't do it. So
No,
let's get a number on this. Let's say it's 35% now. Let's go 38%. Raise it up. 3%.
Well, that's going to depend on how much the corporation is making at the time, what the ability it is to repay this loan, how much of a snapshot. It's impossible to say when that 38 or when this proposed dividend increase would occur. What is the state of the economy at that time? What is the state of C&D at that time? What are the repayment methods? I will say this, is that the Cherokee Nation businesses has consistently, year after year, exceeded the 35% minimum dividend every year. And they have a very strong record of providing for the needs of the Cherokee people. That's the purpose of that corporation. This line of credit, what it does is further strengthen that business. I was heard it said during the meetings that you had variously on this is that you don't go. There was the time to ask for a line of credits when you don't need it. This business is extremely strong. This is another piece of the puzzle that puts that is why this business is strong. I can't answer your question hypothetically what might happen in the future, but I can answer the question that is this is in the best interest of CMB and therefore in the best interest of the Cherokee people to help provide for the funds that needed to take care of their services.
Well, of course, bottom line, and you all feel this way, everything C&B, C&E, Cherokee Nation, and I'm not meaning this in a smart aleck way, but these folks believe that that's theirs, and you believe that too. I mean, they really take ownership in that's theirs, and
Cherokee Nation business doesn't exist but for the Cherokee people.
thank you.
Period.
And and I hate to sound, I don't mean this in a bad way, but I firmly believe that those folks who elected me to this pretty high-paying job that I've got here in this comfortable seat, they wanted and expected me to have a little more control of that unattached federal money that, a lot of the money that we have here, you got to go through a nonprofit, this and that, and this and that, and, the fund money don't have to do that stuff.
I wouldn't call it fund money at all.
You
I mean, no, not at all.
Okay.
There are regulations that and laws that you have to abide by in the to spend federal money. There's also very strict limitations of money that you can only spend on money that's provided by casinos. So don't categorize it as fund money or unlimited pocket of money that you guys can
in my mind,
can do. That's not a correct assessment.
Let's say less red tape, not fun. Okay. But anyway, I appreciate what you were, and if it wouldn't affect that at all, I wouldn't have any questions about this. There's a yearly fee that we have to pay, right? If we don't borrow enough money, or if we borrow too much, there's dollars going out. And we also got a pretty good insurance policy, I would say, where dollars are going out. And to vote on this, nobody can answer whether it would tie my hands a little more on the raising the dividend, which puts more money right here to human services, to these places. I'm not campaigning against anything, but I'm going to be, I'll be a no respectfully, sir. Thank you.
Councilor Watkinson.
Doug, thank you for the presentation. Todd, you watered it down a little bit. You killed Doug's presentation. Just kidding. Don't be serious, Todd. Get serious, straight face over there. Doug, what percent of our capital it was used to develop this line of credit, this $150 million? Is it 100% of
I'm not sure I understand.
our assets to set up the line of credit? What assets or what percentage of assets were put into play to set up this line of credit?
Doug, he wasn't in the pre-meeting. He did not attend, so
Are
you
you
might have
talking
to
about?
explain it again.
Are you talking about the cost associated to open and maintain the line, or are you talking about the collateral?
The collateral.
The collateral, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the collateral has been limited. The borrower is C&B. The guarantor is C&E and their subsidiaries. There are no real estate provided as collateral.
Gotcha.
We negotiated that in 13
Okay.
and told them that was a no-go position move for us. Don't even ask. But
Okay, so all
so
of
it's
our.
the revenues of the gaming operation.
That's yours, okay,
Yes.
good. That's good. And in the fishing world, what do you say, Doug is a hell of a stick? Is that right?
Your stick.
No, the
Stick.
stick,
We say that in baseball.
yeah.
Does that answer?
It's a compliment, Doug. Just take it. Thanks, Speaker.
Okay. Counselor
Thank
Lake?
you, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Speaker. Doug, thank you for the presentation. It reinforces some things for me. We appreciate the business doing so well. And I think we all want you to be able to have this line of credit. A line of credit of this magnitude is just something I never thought I'd see out of the Cherokee Nation. And it's gonna get bigger and better as the years go by. I've seen them just continue to increase the financing and the funding that comes not only to the tribe, but to other areas to find new businesses. And I'm all for that. And I'm especially for this line of credit. I do have a little bit of a conflict with the wording of the non-interference agreement. As you know, we've talked about it. And I fully understand now, today, what that means. It means we can't raise the dividend. And I know the AG's sitting over there shaking his head, but that's fine. But you listen to me for a while. I listen to you. We can't raise the dividend without going to CMB, without going to the bank and clearing all that. We can't just do that, even if we needed it for, the last time we did it was for contract referral, 5%. That's when I came in. I was lucky enough to get the vote on that. The other thing is, if this council, and I don't foresee it happening, at least while I'm here, wants to take back the businesses and give you guys a budget someday, which is talked about from time to time, that would cause all kinds of rumblings everywhere. That can't be done either with this line of credit, with this, non-interference agreement installed. And those are two conflicts that I have. I love everything else. I don't know how we get out of that non-interference. You and I talked about, when I buy a set of cattle, I don't do it on a credit. I buy them. Because those guys who do it on credit, if some downturn comes and they got to sell them, the bank won't let them if they can't pay off the note. You guys are in good shape. And so this line of credit is a good thing, and I'm all for it, and I appreciate the good business that you do. You've taken care of it. But I am a little bit conflicted on the non-interference agreement, and I don't know how to get around that. I don't think we can. I would like for somebody smart guys to sit down and figure out how, and that's all I'm going to say.
Can I respond?
Good points, Counselor Lay, on that. Anybody else?
He wants to respond.
Yeah, Doug,
What's that?
Doug wants to
No,
respond.
Doug doesn't need to talk. Council members need to ask questions if you have one. Yes, Counselor Buzzer.
And Doug, thank you. I thought you did really well on the presentation the other day, but that is my concern at the non-interference agreement. I know there has to be certain aspects that can be met in order for this council to take a more percentage or a percent. But on the other hand, I think we have 17 council members here that understand what the market is and what you have to do to get that percentage up. So I feel like Councilor Light, if we could work around wording to take something off of this non-interference, I would be supporting it. But until we do get some different language on that, I'm not going to support it as it is today. I think CNB has done well with our businesses. There's nothing to say that you have. But non-interference is what tells me that you have a problem. There is some type of language that we put in there that if a catastrophe happens with the Cherokee Nation, we need to up at 3%, and we have the full right to do that. Something along that line. I know we just want to go and say we're going to 3% just because we want it. You know, that's not good. I think there has to be some good reason to do that. We'll see how it goes. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm going to allow people that haven't asked to go first. Councilor Warner.
Thank you, Speaker Byrd. I just a few comments. I really appreciate what you guys do. This is a great deal. I'm in awe of some of the things that you guys were able to do and how you put it together. Your team, very good job. You know, some of the same things that Councilor Buzzard said and Councilor Lay and people brought up, but I want to bet on you guys on this. I think you guys probably got a plan, a 5-10 year plan, you know, that, and I start thinking about 35% of what we make, but we're going up every year. So that number, that amount that we get, that kind of goes up as well. And I think I want to bet on you guys today. Appreciate you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Councilor Walker-Stick.
Thank you. Well, I should have went to the daggone meeting. So this is a 5-year plan that is going to be that's going to be tying up our revenue where we can't raise a percentage for 5 years. Is that right, Doug? As far as a dividend from our end to you guys, we won't be able to raise a dividend for 5 years.
I attempted to answer that question with Councilor Crittenden.
Okay.
How long did we have the 30% in place before we moved it up to 35, if I may ask?
It was 25%,
Okay.
and it was moved to 30% in 2005.
Okay.
In 2011, late, it went from 30 to 35.
Okay.
Both during times, I know at least the last one, during time in which the exact same non-interference agreement was in place.
Okay. Councilor Walker-Stick. You still have the floor.
Yeah, I just need my Todd. You want to answer it?
Well, I mean, what I stated to Mr. Crittenden was that, you know, you and a couple other councilors said, well, we can't do that. Well, yes, you can. It just depends on what the circumstances is at the moment that it's the request made. And Mr. Evans brings up an excellent point. The last time that we increased the dividend from 30 to 35% was during an identical non-interference agreement. There was a need. The council considered that. We went to CMD, saw that increasing the dividend would not interfere with the repayment of the loan, and it was the dividend was increased. So
Is there an opt-out on this, Doug, or just are we in for 5 years? Is there an opt-out?
It's a line of credit. It's an open line of credit that is available at its amount or anything up to that amount during that period to be borrowed down, drawn down, or borrowed down, and then repaid back from time to time.
Yeah.
Because it is a open line of credit, not a term loan,
Yeah.
then we don't pay interest if we haven't borrowed.
Mm-hmm.
We pay a fraction of what an interest would be in a non-used commitment fee.
Yeah.
Okay, unused commitment.
Yeah.
But
I think the whole everything, the amount of money, the percentages and all that it's great. It's right on. The only thing that's got me is the dividend and raising the dividend, and the reason being is I see the Cherokee Nation coming to that point at some. I mean, we just got over our budget hearings. We had like a $3 million carryover, and that concerns me. And then, with our competitors, that's going on with Creek Nation. you know, we're slowly starting to see the effects of Creek Nation at CMB, and you know, we're all going to be fighting for money here pretty soon, and then our tribe keeps getting larger, and everything just keeps affecting, and it's just a revolving circle of a lot of deficits, I guess. But so the interference that what I hear these guys talking about in the dividend, of course, so if this body came and said, we want to raise this dividend, as Councilman Crittenden was saying, up to 40%, we would pass it, and then it'd go to you guys, and then you guys would have to contact the bank and say, we're going to have to cancel our, no? So it is, I'm trying to figure this, I'm hearing conflicted stories.
Yeah,
Penalty if we go back.
process would be is that the council would want, let's say hypothetically, sometime in the future, to increase, and we'll pick a number, from 35 to 40%.
Okay.
That item has to be on the agenda,
Uh-huh.
so therefore there's public notice of it.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully, that idea would be communicated to CMB Board of
Uh-huh.
Directors and the other
Yeah.
stakeholders long before that. And calculations would be done to say, okay, if we do that, if we raise it to 40%, how does that affect the repayment schedule of this loan? And that, then either one could.
This isn't a loan. This is a line of credit.
The line of credit, the terms of the agreement, the ability to repay.
Now, is the terms of the agreement, does it conflict with us wanting to raise the dividend? And I asked this because we were talking about the CMB, I want to say activity fund. What is it? The CMB contributions. The contributions fund. We had this discussion, and Todd brought forward the this agreement with what was it, the credit, the banks. We had some partnerships with the bank that limited us as the tribal council to go up to CMB and to get those funds. Because there was other agreements in place up there. You remember?
I remember that, and really we're talking apples and oranges at this point. What that issue was what point of a slippery slope argument where governmental control would occur in the corporations. I think one of a primary reason, or one of the main reasons that our businesses have flourished at the astronomical rate that it has is that we have early on put a line of demarcation between business and government. Mm-hmm. Okay, yep. So I can give you copious examples of tribe after tribe where their government has ran their businesses and have failed. Yeah. I think when keeping that line of demarcation there, and also ensuring that the tail doesn't wag the dog. That you do have considerable oversight over the businesses. So we're talking apples and oranges in that instance. Here we're talking about would that violate the term or the terms of the agreement on the ability to repay. I will say this again and maybe I'm missing the boat, but as clearly as I can. This loan, this line of credit does not prevent the council from raising the dividend. Uh-huh. It just depends on the circumstances of if, when, and how. So that's a business decision anybody makes. So I can't say, you're just not going to be able to raise a dividend. That's not. Yeah. That's not a correct assessment.
I understand that. Yeah. I guess it depends how much money we borrow towards.
No, you're good. Keep going.
I guess
need to start coming to these pre-meetings and.
Right.
I should have came to pre-meeting.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm just worried about the dividend. As you said, you can increase it. I guess it's pending how much money you borrow against 150 million, and what our revenue is, and what our,
If we can pay it back.
yeah, if we pay it back or not. So,
It'll depend on what our revenue is at the time, and it changes.
yeah, and then how much we borrow against that line of credit.
Right.
So, okay, well, that's all I have. So, all right, thanks, Speaker.
We're good. Counselor Rasta?
Yes, if we want to increase our dividend, the most surefire way to do it is not by one time increasing our dividend, but rather by giving our businesses the tools they need to grow. We got to recognize 10 years ago our business dividend was less than half of what it is now. It wasn't because our dividend was half, it was because our volume was half. Today our businesses do twice as much business. I hope 10 years from now our businesses do twice as much as they do today, and that our dividend is twice as much as it is today. That's our share, the amount of money we have to expend should grow, but not because we dividend the business out of the ability to do business, but rather that we give the business the tools to grow so that it can continue to give us the dividend that is a healthy dividend for the business and a healthy dividend for the Cherokee Nation. I want to give you guys the tools needed, and I believe this is a necessary tool.
Good point. Counselor Shaw, do you have a comment?
Well, my only comment is I think these terms are just fantastic. You know, I really do. I personally feel so much better now that you have explained that we can increase the dividend if the money's there, that the tribal council can request it. And I want to make sure I'm correct in that, right?
That is correct, ma'am.
Well, I have to tell you, I wish I could get terms like this.
Counselor Creighton?
Let me ask you this, if this passes and we come back and the council sees a need where we want to raise it, do you foresee penalties from these folks, from the banks, for wanting to raise it 5%, a need here? Is it going to be some outrageous penalty where if we come and lay something down saying we want to raise it, like you say, we still can? Well, yeah, Councilor Crittenden, if you want to pay so many millions in penalties, and then, you know, that was...
There's no provision for a penalty on interference. There is a breach that occurs if that interference precludes our ability from paying the banks back what they loan us.
Okay, so no pay banks.
No, it's a breach. You just cancel the whole line.
If we
If they were able to determine that an increase in the dividend would position the business to be in breach of the terms of this agreement and our ability to repay our borrowings to those financial institutions.
They be in the banks.
Yes.
Okay.
And of course, there would be a lot of discussions around that. Just like there was in 2011 and 05.
So they would be the ones saying if it's breached or not.
Well, there would be a process, I assume, that
There's a
be followed.
copious amounts of process that would go there before there was a determination of a breach.
After we would decide we would want to raise it, a copious amount of processes. Right.
Again, whatever the increase at a given time, we would calculate on our end whether we believe that it would materially affect the line of credit, and the banks would do the same thing. In 2005 and 2011, we came to an agreement that it wouldn't. I can't answer it any more plain than that.
Yeah, just a comment before I ask for a roll call vote. You know, you still have the president's proposed budget hanging out there. We have a growing population, as Councilor Walkenstick said. We have adjacent states that are doing gaming, not Indian gaming, just gaming, that are going. That's what a lot of states are doing. And this line of credit, it's a good thing for the tribe. I remember when we didn't have the flexibility or the leverage to do that. And I, for one, I do not want to have you guys come to us in like the state of Oklahoma and the federal government to be in the red. I mean, there's no way I could go back and tell my constituents, the Cherokee Nation, we're in the red. So the management, the business arm of the tribe, you guys are doing a good job. And if we want to raise the dividend at the time that we propose this, then we'll have our financial report updated that day to see if we're capable of taking out a dividend. Doesn't prevent us from asking for a special dividend for needs. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if there's a need out there in the communities, in some areas, if we need a special dividend to cover that cost, we as a council can come back and say, we need $300,000 to take care of a catastrophe in Sequoia County, Delaware County. We can do that. We appropriate the money. So,
And CMD has had a historical record of providing back to the Cherokee Nation far beyond the 35% minimum dividend.
Yes.
Every year.
but Doug, I commend you and your staff for this, like Councilor Shaw said, for the leverage in this and what it cost us last time we went for a line of credit and how much you decreased that cost. Because you said it's close to $1 million that we had to pay in fees. I think this one here is something like $170,000, is that correct?
With inclusive all costs, no offense, including attorneys, a little over 200 compared to over $1 million in '05.
Just keep us out of the red. Okay? All right, Shelley, roll call vote.
Brian Warner,
Yes.
Bill England, Keith Austin,
Yes.
Harley Buzzard,
Yes.
Joe Byrd,
Yes.
Sean Crittenden,
No.
Mike Dobbins,
Yes.
Frankie Hargis,
Yes.
Wanda Hatfield,
Yes.
Rex Jordan,
Yes.
Dick Lay,
Nope.
Mike Shambaugh,
Yes.
Mary Bakershaw,
Yes.
E.O. Smith,
Yes.
Janice Taylor,
Yes.
Victoria Vasquez, David Walkingstick.
Yes.
Thank you, Council.
We have 13 yes and 2 no. Motion passes.
Okay. Any announcements? Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion, second.
Could we take about 15 minutes, come back at 3?